Today we will be discussing Srimad Bhagavatam, Chapter 1, Canto 1, Chapter 7, Text 8. Datta. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Cheva Narottanam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jyamudiyayat. Nastubhayasya Bhadrasu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavata Tamastoke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistike. So, Srimad Bhagavatam 178. Sasamitam Bhagavatim Kitvanukam Yachat Matyam Sukam Madhyapayam Masa Nivritti Niratam Munihi. The word for word translation. Saha, that. Samitam, the Vedic literature. Bhagavatim, in relation with the personality of Godhead. Kitva, having done. Anukramya, by correction and repetition. Cha, and. Atmajam, his own son. Sukam, Sukadev Goswami. Adhyapayamasa, taught. Nivritti, path of self-realization. Niratam, engaged. Munihi, the sage. Translation. The great sage Vyasadeva, after compiling the Srimad Bhagavatam and revising it, taught it to his own son, Sukadev Goswami, who was already engaged in self-realization. Purport. Srimad Bhagavatam is a notable commentation on the Brahma Sutras compiled by the same author. This Brahma Sutra, or Vedanta Sutra, is meant for those already engaged in self-realization. Srimad Bhagavatam is so made that one becomes at once engaged in the path of self-realization simply by hearing the topics, although it is especially meant for Paramahamsas or those who are totally engaged in self-realization. It works into the depths of the hearts of those who may be worldly men. Worldly men are all engaged in sense gratification, but even such men will find in this Vedic literature a remedial measure for their material diseases. Sukadev Goswami was a liberated soul from the very beginning of his birth, and his father taught him Srimad Bhagavatam. Amongst mundane scholars, there is some diversity of opinion as to the date of the compilation of Srimad Bhagavatam. It is, however, certain from the text of the Bhagavatam that it was compiled before the disappearance of King Parikshit and after the departure of Lord Krishna. When Maharaj Parikshit was ruling the world as the king of Bharatvarsha, he chastised the personality of Kali. According to the revealed scriptures and astrological calculation, the age of Kali is in its 5,000th year. Therefore, Srimad Bhagavatam was compiled not less than 5,000 years ago. Mahabharata was compiled before Srimad Bhagavatam, and the Puranas were compiled before Mahabharata. This is an estimation of the date of compilation of the different Vedic literature. The synopsis of Srimad Bhagavatam was given before the detailed description under the instruction of Narada. Srimad Bhagavatam is a science for following the path of Nivritamach. The path of Pravritimach was condemned by Narada. The path is the natural inclination for all conditioned souls. The theme of Srimad Bhagavatam is the cure of the materialistic disease of the human being, or stopping completely the pangs of material existence. I read the first ones again. Sasammitam bhagavatim kitvanukam yachatmajam sukam madhyapayam asa nivrittanyratam munihi. The great sage Vyasadeva, after compiling the Srimad Bhagavatam and revising it, taught to his own son, Sri Sukadeva Goswami, who was already engaged in self-realization. Om Mahyanati Mrandasya Chanan Savasnika Chakshun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Chichitayamanopistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svamrapgadamyam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shiyo Shiyuda Padakamanam Shiram Vaishnavam Sham Shri Rupam Jagajatam Sakanaragnatam Pitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sakalita Shivishakam Vitam Shah He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jatpate Gopesha Kopka Kanta Radha Kanta Namastate Tapta Kanchna Gauri Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhana Sutta Devi Pranama Maharipriye Pancha Kalta Vishwa Kripa Sindhu Vishwa Patnam Pavana Bhyo Vaishnavyo Namo Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavan Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namini Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharani Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paskachaya Desatani Srila Prabhupada Ki. So in this verse, it's mentioned that Srila Vyasadeva, after compiling the Bhagavatam, he taught it to Sukadeva Goswami. So in the beginning of this chapter, it is explained how Srila Vyasadeva followed the instruction of Narada Muni to compile the Bhagavatam. And that compilation of the Bhagavatam starts with a meditation. He was meditating on the absolute truth with devotion. And he could clearly see the material energy and the spiritual energy. He could see the spiritual worlds, material worlds, and the Vyachya river and the Brahmajyoti between that. And he understood those were in material energy. In the material world, less intelligence spiritually. And they are conditioned. And those in the spiritual world, they are liberated. And then after describing his realization in 3 verses in the previous verse, he has given the way to get out of this conditioned state. And that is the giving oral reception to the narrations of the Supreme Lord in the Srimad Bhagavatam. And that frees from one from all lamentation, illusion, and fear. So after having this realization, this he wrote the Srimad Bhagavatam. What has been described in these 3 verses describing the realization of Sukadeva Goswami is the Bhagavatam factually in seed form. And from there, it expanded in what it is today for us even for the demigods, it expanded further. Demigods have a Bhagavatam of 80,000 verses. We have only this 17,000 verses and a bit that he taught it to Sukadev Goswami. Sukadev Goswami was an Atmaram, self-satisfied soul, realized soul, that and in a few verses, in verse 10, 2 verses further, the Atmaram verse will be described. Atmarama Samunaye. This is a very important verse that it describes how the Atmaram, the self-certified soul, is, although on the liberated platform, is still attracted to hearing about the Supreme Lord. That means that there is a pleasure beyond liberation. And that's spiritual life. So Srila Prabhupada mentioned in a lecture on this verse that so many so-called devotees are impersonalist, and they are interpreting the Brahma Sutra and the Vedanta Sutra in their own ways, and also the Bhagavatam. So this Atma Ram verse was also explained by the followers of Sankaracharya. We can read in the Srimad Bhagavatam how Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya met Lord Chaitanya in Jagannath Puri. When after taking sannyas, Lord Chaitanya, on the order of his mother, made his base in Jagannath Puri. And the first time when he arrived in Jagannath Puri, then he entered the temple. He fell, due to his love for Lord Jagannath, he felt great ecstasy, and he felt unconscious out of ecstasy. And Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was a great scholar. Bhattacharya is factually a high title, one of the highest titles in the Vedic studies, Bhattacharya. And he was the greatest scholar in the whole area, and nobody could excel him. And therefore, the king of Puri engaged him as a teacher in Jagannath Puri. And he was also in charge of the Jagannath temple. Bhaktivinoda Thakur later became also in charge. When Lord Chaitanya fell unconscious before the deities, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya happened to be there. And the pandas, the pujaris, were thinking, that Lord Chaitanya, they didn't know who he was. They never saw him. They were thinking, oh, he's faking. And they wanted to beat him and throw him out. But then Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya said, wait a minute. Because he was not breathing anymore. At least they could not see that he was breathing, Lord Chaitanya. But then Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, he understood the symptoms of ecstasy of a self-realized soul. And he had some cotton, and he was putting it before the nostrils of Lord Chaitanya. And he could see that he was still breathing, that very, very weakly. So he told the pujaris, you bring him to my house. So he brought him to the house, and think Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya had one, and yeah, I think it was his nephew anyway, he was a family member of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, Gopinathacharya, and Gopinathacharya said to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya many times, this sannyasi is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You should accept him as such. But then finally, that the Lord Chaitanya in the house of Bhattacharya after some hours came to external consciousness. He came to external consciousness and he said, and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya said to Lord Chaitanya, you have taken sannyas, and you are still so young and attractive that and you have taken sannyas from Keshava Bharat. Bharat is also a title, but it's a lower caste of or lower level of sannyas. And Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya said to Lord Chaitanya, I will educate you. I will educate you and make from you a Saraswati sannyas. What's a higher level of sannyas. And Lord Chaitanya was very, very humble. He was humble, and he said to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, yes, please educate me. But Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya started to teach the meaning of the Vedanta Sutra, of the Brahma Sutras, which are mentioned here in the purport. And he was teaching the interpretation of Sankaracharya. And he was speaking for 7 days. 7 days he was speaking. And Lord Chaitanya did not say anything. So after 7 days, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya said to Lord Chaitanya, but you are not saying anything. And then Lord Chaitanya said that for me the verses of the Vedanta Sutra, the Brahma Sutra, they are very clear like the sun. But your explanations are clouding it. Okay, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, who was the highest scholar in the area, nobody could defeat him. He said to Lord Chaitanya, you explain then Vedanta Sutra. And Lord Chaitanya started to explain Vedanta Sutra, and in a very clear way. You find this explanation of Vedanta Sutra, you find this explanation in Chaitanya Charitamrita. And after hearing this, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya said, your explanation is very clear. Now I understand much more clear this Vedanta Sutra. And then after that, they discussed this Atmarama verse, which is verse 10 here further, which describe the liberated soul. Atmarama Samunayi. It's a little further. You can read the verse here. Atmaram Samuni Nishant Apyokame Kavantahait Kim Bhaktim Itam Buddha Gonori. All different varieties of Atmarams, especially those established on the path of unalloyed devotional service to the personality of Godhead. It means that those established on the path of self-realization, freed from all kinds of material bondage, they are freed from all material bondage, but they desire to render unalloyed devotional service to the personality of Godhead. It means that the Lord possesses transcendental qualities and therefore can attract everyone, even including liberated souls. So that's the translation of this Atmarama verse. And Lord Chaitanya and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, he gave 13 explanations of this Atmarama verse, brilliant explanations. And then he said to Lord Chaitanya, you explain now the Atmarama verse. And Lord Chaitanya, even without touching any of the explanations given by Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, he gave 64 explanations of the meaning of this verse. After that, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was so astonished. He said, you must be the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Nobody else can do that. And then at that moment, his heart changed. And he accepted Lord Chaitanya as a Supreme Personality of Godhead. And at that moment, Lord Chaitanya showed to him a six-armed form, the Sadbhuj form, that with two arms holding a flute, Krishna, and two arms, greenish arms of Lord Ram, and then two with a bow and an arrow, and then two arms as Lord Chaitanya with a danda and a stick and a water pot. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya understood at that moment that what Gopinath Acharya said to him, yes, it's true. Lord Chaitanya is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But Lord Chaitanya explained this Vedanta Sutra very clearly. That he said that one must understand it in its direct meaning, that and not indirect. So this, but then we have it's mentioned here that the Bhagavatam is another commentation compiled by the same author. This is important. The Vedanta Sutra are aphorism. Aphorism means very cryptic. It's so cryptic that one cannot understand it without an explanation. Therefore, the explanation of the Vedanta Sutra is factually the Srimad Bhagavatam. What's the first verse of the Srimad Bhagavatam, of the Vedanta Sutra? It's Janmasya Asya, that the absolute truth is the origin of everything. And what is the first verse of the Bhagavatam? It starts also with Janmadhyasya, the same. The absolute truth is origin of everything, but it explains how. Janmadhyasya tom vyatitartas sadis abhihyasvaratene brahmaridaya atki muyantyat surya. Terovarim mridam yatav timayo yatotisharyam risa damnasvin sadani astakrakam satyam pram dimahi. It says that I meditate upon Lord Krishna because he is the absolute truth, he is the primeval cause of the creation, of the sustenance, of the destruction of the material worlds, is indirectly and directly conscious of all manifestations, is Swarat, is independent, is abhijna, full conscious of everything, is conscious and is independent because there is no other cause beyond him. So we see that connection, that factually, what does the Vedanta Sutra teach? Because of course there are many verses. The first 5 verses are well known. Atato Brahma Jihnas. Now is the time. You have got the human form of life, and Brahma Jihnas. It's the time to inquire about the absolute truth, about who you are. That Atato Brahma Jihnas. That because it is said, Aham Brahmasmi. I'm Brahman, I'm not spiritual. But what is that spirit, soul, and so on? That is all explained in the Bhagavatam and the Bhagavad Gita. That this Vedanta Sutra cannot be understood without any commentation. It's too short, cryptic. But the Vedanta Sutra, yeah, it has 2 names, that book. Vedanta Sutra, Veda, knowledge, Anta, end. The end of knowledge, presented in sutras, aphorism, very cryptic. That's the meaning of Vedanta Sutra. That it's also called the Brahma Sutras, the sutras, aphorisms about Brahman. That and this is meant for those who are engaged in self-realization. Therefore, self-realization also in the Vedanta Sutra is explained in 4 books. And the first book explains Sambandha Jnana. Who is Krishna? Who am I? And what is our relationship? That is Sambandha Jnana. If you don't have that knowledge, it's impossible to perform devotional service. Because you don't know the person to whom to perform it. You don't have the knowledge of the persons, no knowledge of the relationship, which is devotional service. So that's the first thing. And the second and the third book are about the practice, the abhideya, how to practice our relationship with Krishna in devotional service. And the last book is about prayojan, getting the ananda, the bliss of prema, love for God. That Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Vedasa sarvami Veda, I'm to be known by all the Vedas. That's the purpose of the Vedas. That and self-realization means means that one reawakens one's spiritual consciousness and my relationship with Krishna to act again as a spirit soul. So Srimad Bhagavatam is made for us to bring us of that path of self-realization. And in the previous verse, we have heard that just given by our reception to these narrations of the Lord and becoming absorbed of it, that we realize our relationship with Krishna, we realize this Sambandha Jnana, and as a result, we will engage in devotion service, Abhideya. And then we become free from lamentation, illusion, and fear. So the only way to get free from lamentation, illusion, and fear is to engage your body, mind, words, everything in the service of Krishna. And that's a very important. We should never listen to our mind. Our mind is our enemy. The mind is our friend when it's purified, but that's far away. The mind is our enemy. Don't listen to your mind. How does it feel and this and that? Don't listen to your mind. We are controlled by the mind in that way. Maya means the mind. Very important, always engage the mind in devotional service, and by that it becomes controlled. And that's the only way. From the moment you think, how does it feel? How do I like this, dislikes, and so on? We are lost. But we must learn, and that is the Bhagavan teaching, to engage the mind and to use our emotions fully in Krishna's service. The 10th canto, when we hear about the residents of Vrindavan, their emotions are completely engaged in Krishna's service. And these are the natural emotions of the soul. So it's not by negating our emotions. We must learn to use our emotions in the service of Krishna. That's very important. That deity worship is all about using our emotions, and it's so beautiful. So emotions are there. They must become purified. They must be brought in harmony with the soul. That's the point. So with this Bhagavatam, therefore, those who are on the spiritual platform are always engaging, their minds are always engaged in Krishna's service. Machita Brahma Bodhi Antus Praspram Kati Ansamam Nityam Tushanti Sharamanti. They speak with each other about Krishna, and they relish this bhakti ras, this devotional mellows comes up. And that's the purpose of our life. That is the enjoyment of the soul, which is millions times more brighter than sense gratification. But we must do that austerity to engage body, mind, and words in the Christian in the service of the Lord. And that is the path of Nivritta Marg. From the moment you are in Pavriti Marg, that's the path of sense gratification. We listen to the mind. The mind says so many things. If you have a relationship with this boy or this girl, you will be happy, and so on. But that is not happening in this world. That's just a nice idea. It doesn't happen for anyone. If you are not convinced, you can speak with some grihastas who are married for 40 years. You have a talk with them. It doesn't happen. That so, but we must learn to engage ourselves in Krishna's service. And yes, we have our likes and dislikes, but then we have to use them somewhere or another in devotional service. We cannot negate them. And for this, we need a spiritual master or advanced devotees who know our situation and so on. That, but this Bhagavatam is meant for the Paramahamsas. That's the beauty of the process of devotional service. What do we do in the beginning of devotional service? We try to serve Krishna with our senses. We chant the holy name, we hear the Bhagavatam, we worship the deity. If you are self-realized, what are you going to do? We come at the highest platform of prema. What do? You hear about Krishna, you chant about Krishna, you worship the deity. It's the same thing, but your consciousness is different. These are the activities of the devotees in the spiritual world who are always blissful. So these are the Paramahamsas. It's meant for the Paramahamsas, and we hear the Bhagavatam and we don't understand much in the beginning, but as we become purified, we will get to understand that. Therefore, when you study the Bhagavatam, you study the entire Bhagavatam, it takes 4 or 5 years, you start again. And the second time, it will be completely different. And the third time, it will become more blissful. So we never stop doing that. I see Bhakti Charamaj, she translated the Srimad Bhagavatam in Bengali. It was such a deep meditation, and he became so advanced just by doing that. But yes, that's the path of Bhagavad Dharma, hearing, chanting, remembering Krishna, and that's the path of Nivritti Marg. We are not engaging in sense gratification, only for the pleasure of Krishna. But then you have the Pravritti Marg or the Karma Kanda, and it's clearly stated here in the purport that the path of Pravritti Marg was condemned by Narada Muni. He condemned it because it never works out. You go to the heavenly planets and then your credits are up and you fall down again to the material world and you become and then you become a human in the beginning again, but then what's happening afterwards? Are you going up again? If you are engaged in sense gratification and you instead of becoming pious, you become impious, you go down. You never know. No, that so that path of Pravritti Marg doesn't work. But many who are on that path, they think this karma kanda is everything. Everything that exists, karma is supreme. If I do good things, I will get good reaction. There's no spiritual world or something. They don't believe in that, or liberation. No, yeah, eternally in this material world. That's what many of them think. That, of course, this power of Pravritti Marg is somewhat attractive for demons, for the asuras, because they can get more and more sense gratification on the heavenly planets. And therefore Sukracharya, he was the spiritual master of the demons. And on his strength, he brought them to conquer the heavenly planets even. But Bali Maharaj could not stay there. Therefore, he had to perform 100 Asvamedha Shakyas, one of the greatest pious rituals, which is very costly and takes a lot of time, that he had to perform them to stay there in heaven. But anyway, it's a very troublesome path that it doesn't lead to spiritual realization. One remains in this world. That, but that path is attracted to money. That path is the natural inclination for all the conditioned souls. I read from some historians that Christianity, in the beginning, they were vegetarian and so on, and they followed the 10 Commandments. No animal killing, nothing. But then somewhere or another, the next generations deviated, and then it came, the thought came, yeah, Jesus has suffered for us. He will liberate us. And then they changed the Bible. Thou shalt not kill. It's in thou shall not murder. And by that, it became very popular, Christianity. Everyone could do what they wanted and still be religious, drinking and eating meat and so on. And by that, it became very popular. And it spread all over the world in that way. Well, not until 100 years ago. But that is not the path that leads to self-realization. It is the nirvitamar. One must renounce. And artificially renouncing, like the impersonalist, is klesha dikataraksesham. It's very troublesome, and it leads only to liberation, not to self-realization. Self-realization is realization that I'm a servant of Krishna. And by devotional service, one only can go beyond self-realization and enter the spiritual world. Ananya Bhakti is the condition that, and to attain this Ananya Bhakti, that is the theme of the Bhagavatam. And that will stop the material disease, and we will become completely free from the pangs of material existence, as explained here. So it's also mentioned here, this is a detail, the Srimad Bhagavatam was compiled not less than 5,000 years ago. In a lecture, Prabhupada says it's now 5,250 years or something. Yeah. So, but it was compiled after Krishna disappeared, and that's also that's confirmed by the Bhagavatam, that because the sage of Namaisaranya, when they met, they heard the Bhagavatam from Sutta Goswami, but before it was spoken by Sukadev Goswami in the presence of Vyasadev, and also Sutta Goswami was there. But it's mentioned in the Bhagavatam, Krishna Svadama Parati Dharmachana Dibisaha Kalinasti Samisa Purunarkodunodita. That this Bhagavad Purana, this Srimad Bhagavatam, has arisen after Krishna left. And when Krishna left, all religion and knowledge went with him. So there was darkness in Kali Yuga. But Krishna left, but is still here as the Bhagavatam. That this is an incarnation of Krishna, this Bhagavatam. So one time in America, they were preaching with buses, and they were distributing Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, and their bus was so full, they could not take deities with them, no space. And they wrote Prabhupada what to do. And Prabhupada replied that oh, you don't have deities with you, but the Bhagavatam is Krishna. You do puja for the Bhagavatam every day. This is the deity of Krishna. So it's non-different from Krishna. the Bhagavatam. And Sanatana Goswami in his also described it, that this Bhagavatam is our best friend, that and Krishna left us, but he came back as the Srimad Bhagavatam is still there. That so this is what I could say on this verse. I read it again. So Samitam Bhagavatim Kritvanu Kramya Chatmajam Sukhamadhyapayam Masani Vrittiniratam Munihi. The great sage Vyasadeva, after compiling the Srimad Bhagavatam and revising it, taught it to his own son, Sri Sukadeva Goswami, who was already engaged in self-realization. Any questions, please? Haribol.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you for wonderfully explaining Pravritti Marga and Nivritti Marga. Maharaj, you did mention in the class about mind. It is not our friend until it becomes purified, and we shouldn't listen to mind. But many times, after hearing such lecture or reading Prabhupada's book, yes, we decide, yes, now I don't listen to mind, and we try, but it is most of the time it is short-lived. So how to increase that? What practices, what tips you can provide so we can more and more practice and control the mind?
That first here, yes, we have this contaminated with mind, and as long as contaminated by passion and ignorance, we are living with an enemy. But this enemy can make our life very bitter. That very difficult to live with such an enemy. So we have to be careful. That so I remember Prahlad Maharaj once spoke about that, and he said, yes, the mind says, I want sweets. I want sweets. And when you say no, the mind becomes very sour, very difficult to deal with. So Prahlad Maharaj said, how to deal with the mind? You tell the mind, I will give you a little, but that's it. So then you eat a little sweet, but that's it. So we must learn to put the limits in these things. That, but that becomes sometimes very difficult. Because why it's so difficult? Because for many lifetimes, and also in this life, we have developed bad habits to listen to this mind and to fulfill this mind, to satisfy this mind. And that's a bad habit, a very bad habit. That how can we counteract that? Develop spiritual habits and engage the mind into it. That's very important. Spiritual habits. So you make a schedule for 24 hours a day, and that's what you are doing. You are going to the temple in the morning, attend Mangalarti, and chant your rounds in association of devotees. Don't leave them. Very important. It's chant in their association. That hear the Bhagavatam. That hear the Bhagavatam, and then take prasadam, and then the rest of the day, you must learn to engage yourself in devotion service. You can cook for Krishna, can work for Krishna. That You can make garlands for Krishna. That you can hear the Bhagavatam, you can hear lectures, you can make a walk and you perform japa, you read some of the books you like to read in Krishna consciousness, you do things that are needed for your service, but never for yourself, your false self, for the body. Then you become trapped. But that is something we have to develop gradually. Therefore, this path of devotion service is not so easy, especially when you have developed for a big part of your life all these bad habits which coming from your previous life. And it takes time to overcome them. And sometimes you will fail. But there is no other solution than Srila Prabhupada gives in the Bhagavad Gita. Especially read the last 10 verses of the Bhagavad Gita. And verse 261. Tani sarvani samyaya yata ashita matparam tasya yasyandriyani tasya prajna pratisthita. One who retrains his senses, keeping them under full control, and fixes his consciousness upon me, is known as a man of steady intelligence. Unless one is Krishna consciousness in the purport, it is not at all possible to control the senses. Krishna consciousness engagement is the only way, Prabhupada says. All the other things, forget it. It will not work. The Vasmuni unnecessarily became angry out of pride. He had a quarrel with Ambarish Maharaj. And he could not check his senses. He was such a yogi, but he could not check his anger. But Ambarish Maharaj remained calm. And then Prabhupada gives the method to control your senses. And I advise everyone to study these verses very deep. Canto 9, 4, 18, 20. Savaimana Krishna Padaravina Vachamsi Pakunti Unani Varne Karoa Hari Mandir Marchana Adino Shutim Sakarachyuta Satkato Dayi Mukundalingala Darshanatri Shao Tadbritya Gatra Sparshinka Sankhanam Hranam Satat Padara Sarucha Sorabe Shimati Tulasya Rasnam Tadarpite Padore Kshetra Padan Sarpane Rish Shiro Shikesha Pada Bivandane Kaman Sadasya Natu Karma Kamyaya Yatota Masloka Yanasrajarati. King Ambarish fixes his mind on the lotus feet of the Lord, engages his words in describing the abode of the Lord, his hands in cleansing the temple, his ears in hearing the pastimes of the Lord, his eyes in seeing the form of the Lord, his body in touching the body of the devotees, his nostrils in smelling the flavor of the flowers offered to the lotus feet of the Lord, his tongue in tasting tulsi leaves offered to them, his legs in traveling to the holy place where his temple is situated, his head in offering obeisance unto the Lord, and his desires in fulfilling the desires of the Lord. All these qualifications made him fit to become a Matpara devotee of the Lord. So that is the practice to come to this manmana, always thinking of Krishna. And then Bhavamat Bhakta, if you become his devotee, then after many years you become his devotee. Devotee means devotion. That's after liberation. So that's our path. But it's joyfully performed. It takes a while to develop the spiritual habits which I just read. These are the spiritual habits we have to develop. Yes, Mother Kylie.
Sorry, Maharaj, just one question. The
Yeah.
10 verses you mentioned, Maharaj, you said we should study the last 10 verses. What are the numbers, Maharaj?
Canto 9.
2 points.
Yeah, the verses from 61 to 72, second chapter Bhagavad Gita.
Okay.
And then the Bhagavatam.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Mother Kylie, yeah. Hare Krishna.
Yeah. Hi, Krishna. Thank you so much for class. Many good points. I have two questions, just kind of quickly.
Yeah. Start with one.
So, okay, yeah. So the Christianity comparison you gave about how they kind of changed the Bible so that it could be more applicable to everybody and it would be more attractive, and then everyone is like feeling that they can do whatever they want but still be religious. So I'm kind of confused also because I hear a lot in Krishna consciousness that we can kind of do whatever we want but dovetail it in Krishna's service. So can you kind of explain how this Krishna conscious practice is different than that? Because we can still like even engage the senses so much with prasadam, or like I just hear all the time that we can take many things and just dovetail. So can you explain the difference?
Yeah, in Krishna consciousness, there is an eligibility for devotional service, to start devotional service. And that is to follow the four regulative principles. If you do not follow the four regulative principles, the mind takes over. There's no question of controlling the mind. The mind will control you. Impossible. And that's not there in Christianity, because but therefore, Srila Prabhupada said, a true Christian is one who follows the 10 commandments of Moses. And these 10 commandments are fully in line with our four relative principles. It's the same thing. So these are true Christians, and there are still true Christians but they are a minority. Does that clarify?
Yeah, that does. Thank you. And then the second question I have is, you were talking about the Vedanta Sutras. And so when you were giving the example of Mahaprabhu, when he was talking with Sarvabhauma, he said that the Vedanta Sutras are actually very clear and easy to understand, but his explanations were kind of cloudy. So then you also mentioned that the Vedanta Sutras are like cryptic, but then Mahaprabhu says they're very clear, like the rays of the sun. So are they really like, what, I guess, is it just clear to Mahaprabhu because he's self-realized and they're kind of more cloudy or cryptic to us, or how? What is that?
Now, cloudy means that we give our own interpretation to the Vedanta Sutra. But there's an original, natural explanation, and that is the Bhagavatam. So that's the natural, that's the authorized explanation coming from Krishna. And so that's aparuseya we heard in Bhagavad Gita. It's not from human origin. All the other interpretations are of human origin. And because these interpretations are indirect, they are destroying the quintessence of the totality of the philosophy. And what does that mean? What is meant by that? That like they change the meaning of one verse by words usually, and then the connection with all the other verses become unclear, unless they give also an indirect interpretation to the other verses. But it doesn't make sense at the end. But Prabhupada's explanations are very clear. He's directly, because he knows Krishna's purpose. He's self-realized, he's directly in contact with Krishna, and he presents the Guru Parampara, and it's very clear in its direct meaning that mostly it's also always the direct meaning. Krishna says, Sarvadam Prashyamam comes from Vaja, surrender unto me. And you surrender unto me, and then I will protect you. I will protect you if you surrender unto me. That, but Dr. Radha Krishna, Srila Prabhupada said, he interpreted this verse and gave it an indirect meaning. He say, it's not to Krishna that you have to surrender, but to the impersonal Brahman within Krishna. But that is a mental concoction. That's not in the scriptures. And by that they change so many verses and their meanings. But in its totality, it doesn't make sense. But Lord Chaitanya's meaning were direct and very clear. And if you want to study that, study Chaitanya Charitamrita. You will read everything about it. The explanations are there. But first, study Bhagavatam. That's important because that's the highest philosophy. If you don't realize Bhagavatam, then you don't realize anything of Chaitanya Charitamrita. Does that help?
Yeah, that does help. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So I was happy to be with you, and I hope to be again with you next week. I will be in Sofia, that is in Bulgaria, for 2 weeks, and I'll try to arrange a lecture for next Wednesday, same time. Thank you.
So thank you so much, Maharaj.
Even
your busy schedule, you are spending time with us. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I try my best as long as Krishna helps me to go on. I can do something. Jai Prabhupada.